Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going way back to the 9th century
Ooh, exciting.
to explore a world of
Okay.
ancient medical texts and the fascinating figure
All right.
who brought those texts to life
Yeah.
for a whole new audience. Get ready, because
Yeah.
we're going to unravel the story of ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻,
Right.
the ultimate translator of Greek medical knowledge.
It's a story that really highlights how powerful translation is.
Oh, yeah.
To bridge cultures and shape the course of history.
Yeah.
ḥ𝐻𝐻's work had a big impact on how medicine developed.
For sure.
Not just in the Islamic world, but later on in Western traditions, too.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
To guide us through this deep dive, we've got this incredible manuscript
Right.
called ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 and Galenic Translations by G. Bergstresser.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just some dry historical account.
Yeah.
It actually includes ḥ𝐻𝐻's own notes
Oh, wow.
and commentary about his approach to translation.
That's incredible.
It's like we get to peek right into his mind.
Yeah.
His struggles, his triumphs.
Those personal insights are so valuable.
I know, right?
They give us a much richer understanding of ḥ𝐻𝐻
Yeah.
as a scholar, a physician, and just this incredibly meticulous translator dedicated to his craft.
Totally. Okay, so before we really jump into it all,
Okay.
let's set the scene a little bit.
Right.
We know that ḥ𝐻𝐻 was like a master translator
Yeah.
of these Greek medical texts,
Mhm.
especially the works of Galen,
Right.
who was like the rock star physician of the ancient world.
Exactly. Galen's influence on medicine was huge.
Huge.
And it was largely thanks to ḥ𝐻𝐻's translations
Yeah.
that his work, Galen's work, became accessible to a wider audience,
That's
eventually shaping medical practices for centuries.
It wasn't just about translating words then.
Yeah.
It was about transmitting this incredibly important body of knowledge.
Exactly.
So that's where this manuscript we're exploring comes in.
Yeah.
And it was actually published by the German Oriental Society back in 1925. So
Interesting.
it's kind of fascinating to think about the historical context here, too.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. It adds another layer.
Right.
This manuscript and the society that published it
Mm-hmm.
shows a specific time when European scholars
Yeah.
were really interested in the knowledge and cultures
Yeah.
of the quote-unquote East.
Right, right.
It's a good reminder that how knowledge gets transmitted is always shaped by what's happening in history and culture.
Okay, so we've got ancient Greek medicine,
Mm-hmm.
we've got Islamic scholarship,
Yes.
European interest in the Orient.
Yeah.
It's all in this manuscript.
It's all coming together.
I'm already sensing some, like, serious lost in translation moments,
Oh, I bet.
just waiting to be uncovered.
For sure.
But before we get there, let's talk about ḥ𝐻𝐻's, like, methodology.
Right.
This guy was known for being super meticulous in his approach.
Yes.
He wasn't just writing these texts through some ancient version of Google Translate.
Absolutely not. He was incredibly thorough.
Right.
He would consult multiple Greek manuscripts
Wow.
to make sure he had the most accurate
Okay.
and complete version of Galen's writings.
Yeah.
He even revised his earlier translations
Oh, wow.
as his understanding of Galen's work got deeper over time.
Wow. Talk about dedication.
I know, right?
So he wasn't just a translator.
Yeah.
He was a true scholar,
Yes.
always refining, always striving for clarity.
Absolutely.
And just to add another layer to it all, he
Yeah.
wasn't just dealing with one language, right?
That's right. ḥ𝐻𝐻 was fluent in both Syriac and Arabic,
Wow. Okay.
which allowed him to reach an even wider audience.
Of course.
And remember, it wasn't just words he was translating. It was
Yeah.
complex medical concepts,
Right.
making sure the meaning and the nuances were all conveyed correctly.
Okay, so we've got a master translator,
Huh.
fluent in multiple languages,
Yeah.
grappling with these incredibly complex medical texts.
It's amazing.
I can only imagine the challenges he faced.
I know.
What does the manuscript tell us about those challenges?
Well, first of all, there were variations between the Greek manuscripts themselves.
Oh, wow.
Imagine trying to translate something definitively
Yeah.
when your source material has inconsistencies.
Yeah.
That's a challenge for any translator.
It's like solving a puzzle with missing pieces.
Exactly.
I'm starting to understand why ḥ𝐻𝐻's work
Mm.
was so groundbreaking.
It really was.
But how did he deal with these inconsistencies?
Right.
And what about translating all those
Yeah.
intricate medical terms into Syriac in Arabic.
Well, he was creative, that's for sure.
Okay.
He wasn't afraid to come up with new terminology when he needed to, and he would provide these detailed explanations within his translations so the meaning wouldn't be lost.
He was thorough.
So thorough. He was brilliant with languages, but also a skilled physician, which gave him a deep understanding of what he was translating.
Hold on, wait a second.
Yeah.
He was a physician himself.
Yes.
That's next level.
I know.
No wonder his translations were so insightful.
Right.
He wasn't just looking at words on a page.
No.
He was dealing with concepts that he understood, like practically.
Absolutely.
This manuscript is sounding more and more fascinating.
It is fascinating.
The more we learn about it.
It really is. And you know what makes this manuscript so unique?
Right.
It's what Bergstresser emphasizes.
Okay.
It has these personal anecdotes and details
interesting.
about ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻's translation process that we don't find anywhere else.
Wow. Okay.
It gives us a glimpse into the human side of this amazing intellectual endeavor.
Okay, I am hooked.
Good.
Tell me more about these personal touches, these like behind-the-scenes moments that bring ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻 to life.
Okay.
What kind of stories did he share in this manuscript?
Well, in one instance, he talks about receiving this Greek manuscript.
Okay.
But it was damaged.
Oh, no.
With whole sections missing. Can you imagine the frustration?
Yeah.
But instead of giving up, he meticulously reconstructed those missing parts, like a scholar detective.
That's some serious dedication.
Yeah.
It sounds like he faced quite a few obstacles in his work.
He did. He did.
Did he ever talk about those, like, directly?
He did. He actually included notes about specific translation challenges he faced.
Oh, wow.
Like finding the perfect Arabic equivalent for a Greek medical term.
Oh, I see.
You know, when you read those notes, you really get a sense of how much intellectual effort and linguistic creativity went into his work.
It's fascinating to see how he approached those challenges head on.
Yeah.
And speaking of his approach, the manuscript also kind of shows us how organized he was.
Oh, yeah?
There's this detailed table of contents listing all these works by Galen, like on the elements, according to Hippocrates, the small art of medicine, to the student who wishes to study anatomy, all neatly categorized by subject like anatomy, physiology, therapeutics.
He was like the original medical librarian.
I know, right?
It's true.
So organized.
That table of contents really shows his commitment to making Galen's work accessible and understandable.
Totally.
And it doesn't stop there.
No.
Bergstresser points out that ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻 used these specific symbols and markings within the translated texts to differentiate between Galen's original words and later commentaries added by other scholars and even his own additions.
Wait, so there are notes within the notes.
Exactly.
It's like a multi-layered conversation across time.
It is. It really highlights how complex
yeah.
textual transmission was in the ancient world.
Okay, my brain is trying to picture all of this.
I bet.
Give me a specific example of where ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻 distinguishes between Galen's words and someone else's commentary.
Okay, well, consider this passage about bloodletting.
Okay.
Galen recommends a specific amount of blood to be let
for a certain condition, right?
Yeah.
Then, marked clearly as a later addition, there's a note cautioning against blindly following that advice.
Whoa, interesting.
Emphasizing that the amount should be adjusted based on the individual patient's constitution.
So it's like Galen is speaking from the past.
Right.
And then a later commentator chimes in with a slightly different take.
Yeah.
And ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻 captures both.
He does.
It's amazing to think about all the layers
yeah.
of knowledge and interpretation in these texts.
It is. It really is. And to add another layer, imagine this whole dialogue taking place in the margins of a manuscript.
Wow.
Often in a language different from the original text.
It makes you appreciate the skill and attention to detail that scholars like ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻 brought to their work.
Absolutely.
But let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻's mastery of translation.
Right.
But he didn't start out as some prodigy, right?
Well, interestingly, the manuscript has this story
about ħ𝐻𝐻𝐻's early years studying in Baghdad. He actually mentioned struggling with Greek initially.
Oh, wow.
And feeling discouraged by his lack of progress.
Really?
He even considered giving up on his studies altogether.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, can you imagine?
After all he achieved.
Giving up.
Yeah.
I know.
I guess even the greatest minds have their moments of self-doubt.
Yeah, it's kind of reassuring, actually.
It is, but
Luckily for us.
And for the history of medicine?
Exactly. He had a mentor who encouraged him to keep going.
Good.
And persevered. He did eventually mastering Greek and starting his incredible journey as a translator.
It's like the classic hero's journey.
Yeah.
But for a translator,
I like that.
He faces obstacles, doubts himself, but ultimately finds the strength to push forward and achieve something remarkable.
I agree. It reminds us that mastery in any field, even something as specialized as translation, takes time, dedication, and support from those who believe in us.
Absolutely.
And speaking of dedication, there's another point Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 makes in his writings that I think is worth highlighting. He believed that translators, especially those working with medical texts, needed to be subject matter experts.
That makes sense.
He didn't think it was enough to just be good with languages.
That makes total sense. You wouldn't want someone who only speaks English to translate a French cookbook.
Exactly.
You know, there's a level of cultural and technical understanding that goes beyond just the words.
Exactly. You need to grasp the nuances, the underlying concepts to really convey the meaning accurately.
And with medicine, the stakes are even higher.
Oh, absolutely.
Mistranslations could have serious consequences. No pressure.
Right.
So we know Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 was a physician, which gave him a leg up, obviously, in translating medical texts.
Yeah.
But was it common for translators back then to have that kind of deep expertise in their subject matter?
It's tough to say for sure.
Yeah.
But it seems like many translators, especially those dealing with scientific and philosophical works, had at least some background in the subject they were translating.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Right. You want someone who understands the material to make sure it's accurate and clear. It's like you wouldn't trust just anyone to translate a legal document or a technical manual today.
No.
You'd want a specialist.
Right. Specialized translation is still super important today.
For sure.
Whether it's for software localization, medical interpretation, or any other field where accuracy is key.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's a thought experiment.
Okay.
If Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 were alive today, what fields do you think he would be drawn to?
That's a great question.
What kind of texts would he be translating?
Well, given his passion for medicine and his meticulous approach, I could see him translating cutting-edge research.
Okay.
In fields like genetics or neuroscience.
Oh, interesting. Or maybe artificial intelligence? He was all about breaking down complex ideas.
He was.
Making them understandable. AI seems right up his alley.
I agree. He was a pioneer in knowledge transmission. And I think he'd be drawn to fields that are pushing the boundaries of what we understand.
Totally.
Just like he did back in the 9th century.
You know, we've covered a lot.
We have.
But I'm curious about something.
Okay.
This manuscript is obviously super detailed.
It is.
But are there any gaps in our knowledge about Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻's life or his work?
Right.
What are, like, the big unanswered questions here?
There are definitely some gaps. Like the manuscript itself mentions some of Galen's works that Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 wanted to translate.
Oh, really?
But never got around to it.
So there could be like whole translations out there.
It's possible,
that we've never even seen.
That we haven't seen,
That's wild.
It is pretty amazing to think about.
What else is missing from the historical records?
Well, besides those unfinished translations, some translations have probably been lost over time.
Right.
You know, damaged, destroyed. Or maybe just sitting in some archive waiting to be found.
Oh, can you imagine the insights those missing texts could give us?
I know, right?
Not just about Galen's ideas, but about Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻's whole approach to translating.
Exactly.
It's like a literary treasure hunt.
It is.
Just waiting to happen.
And that's part of what makes historical research so fascinating.
Right, that constant search for new clues.
Always looking for the next piece of the puzzle.
It's kind of like we're doing our own translation here.
Oh, how so?
Trying to understand Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 across all these centuries and cultures. Interpreting his words, his motivations, his impact on the world.
You're right. It's a good point. It reminds us that translation isn't just about words. It's about bridging the gap between cultures. Helping people understand each other.
For sure.
Even if they think and live in different ways.
Totally. And Ḥ𝐻𝐻𝐻 did that so well.
He
bridged that gap between ancient Greek medicine and the emerging world of Islamic scholarship. He made that knowledge accessible.
To so many people.
To a whole new audience.
They've really opened it up.
Okay, so we have this amazing manuscript as our guide.
Yeah.
But are there other resources out there?
Oh, absolutely.
For people who want to learn more about 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻?
Yeah, the manuscript is a great place to start, but there are other sources that offer valuable insights.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there are the writings of Ibn Abi Usaybiya. He was a 13th century biographer who wrote a ton about Hunayn's life.
Interesting.
And about translation work in that era.
It's like a who's who of the translation world.
Pretty much, yeah. And for a different take, there's the 𝐹 by Ibn al-Nadim. It's this 10th century bibliography that lists a huge number of works, including many translations attributed to Hunayn.
Sounds like a comprehensive guide to that whole intellectual scene.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, but I got to ask.
Yeah.
Are there any contradictions between these sources?
That's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Sometimes these sources have slightly different perspectives.
Okay, I see.
For example, the 𝐹𝐬ḥ𝐻𝐾 claims that Hunayn translated a certain number of Galen's books on a particular topic. But our manuscript says he translated fewer.
So maybe a little scholarly exaggeration.
Maybe, or perhaps some translations were lost between the 10th and 13th centuries.
Oh, yeah. It's tough to know for sure.
It is.
And that's what makes this kind of historical research so exciting.
Exactly.
You know, we're always trying to put together the pieces to get the most accurate picture.
Right.
But we know there will always be some gaps.
It's like a detective story.
It is, like a detective story.
But instead of chasing criminals, we're chasing knowledge.
Unraveling the mysteries of the past.
I like that.
Okay, so as we wrap up this amazing deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from it?
That's a tough one.
What's the most important thing you've learned about Hunayn?
I think for me, it's realizing that Hunayn wasn't just a translator. He was a guardian of knowledge.
Right.
He knew how valuable that ancient wisdom was. And he dedicated his life to preserving it, to making sure it would be passed down.
That's an incredible legacy.
It is.
And it makes you think about how important translators are today.
Right.
You know, we live in a world where everything's connected.
Yeah, information is constantly flowing across borders and languages.
Exactly.
Think about all the ways translation shapes our lives. The news we read, the products we use, even the movies we watch.
Right. It's everywhere.
It's all around us, often without us even realizing. So true. So true. So next time you're watching a movie with subtitles, or using Google Translate to understand a website, take a minute to think about the art of translation, and maybe even give a little nod to Hunayn ibn Ishaq.
To Hunayn.
That 9th century scholar.
The OG translator.
Right, the OG.
Who reminds us that translation could be a powerful thing.
A
way to preserve knowledge and culture.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought. In this world of instant communication and, machine translation, are we losing something?
Interesting question.
Something human. Is there a danger in thinking that translation is just a technical process? With no cultural nuance or human interpretation.
It's something to think about.
Something to consider as you navigate this ever-expanding world of information and ideas
out there.
Until next time.
Happy
exploring.